नमोस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shashwat. That was really very nicely done. Thank you very much.
Very well done, Shashi. Good boy.
Prabhuji, I would like to wait for a few more devotees to join before I introduce you. So
that's okay. Shall we wait for 5 minutes or so? Yeah.
2 minutes, Prabhuji, 2 minutes.
No worries.
4 minutes, but we can do the kirtan. We can. Prabhuji, where are you joining us from today?
UK, London.
Okay. Where in UK are you? Because even I'm joining you from the UK.
Oh, really? Whereabouts are you in the UK?
I'm in Sudbury town near Harrow.
Really? Oh, that's so nice. I thought you were in Eldoret in Kenya.
Yeah, I'm Eldoret, Kenya, but I have a house here, so currently I've come here due to the lockdown in Kenya. So
hopefully we can get together at some point then.
Oh, I would love that, Prabhuji. Where are you?
Near the manor, Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Okay.
We're about 5 minutes away from there, Boromod.
That's good. I would love to come there and chant my 16 rounds.
Yeah, why not? That would be nice.
Oh, that would be nice. I thought you were in Ethiopia, Prabhuji.
No, we live in England, but I'm planning to go to Ethiopia for preaching purposes. Okay. Originally, I'm from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And Amharic, that is the Ethiopian language?
Yes, that's the national language of Ethiopia. Yeah, federal language. Majority of the people, they know how to speak Amharic.
Okay. We have one collaborator from Ethiopia. I teach at the university in Kenya, in Eldoret, in the medical school there. So one of my collaborator is Ethiopian.
Okay. Yeah, you can mention to him.
I will, when I get back home.
Ethiopian Vaishnava, yeah. Hopefully we'll send some books for Manasikanga to keep in the temple. We have some Amharic books, so you can always give them. Govinda may have some actually.
You became a devotee in Nairobi.
Say that again, Manasi?
I said, you have to mention to the elder group that you had become a devotee in Nairobi.
Yes, I have.
I'm going to mention that. I've underlined that.
And his uncle. Okay. You know, I think he should tell us his brief coming to Kenya for starting his journey. Then the rest of the introduction, Kritika, you can do. I still haven't heard it all. So Mahaprasad, you can tell us. You are recording so the others can hear on the recording.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, that Prabhuji, if you don't mind, can we record the session?
Yeah, you can.
And then we have a YouTube link, and we put all our recorded sessions on the YouTube link.
That's fine.
And if you are interested, we can pass that link to you.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
Bhagavad Gita reading class.
You know, we can start with Jai Radha Madhav or something, Kirtan, shall we?
Yes. Is Soni Mataji there? Yes, Prabhuji, we'd like to hear from you. So
I can sing as well. Yeah, I don't mind.
Start.
Okay. Would you like me to have a 5 minutes, Jai Radha Madhav?
Yes, please. Yes, please. We can follow you, Prabhuji.
Maybe following may be difficult because of the. But you can put a mute and you can.
Yes.
You can sing. Yeah. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Rajajanarajana Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Rajajanarajana Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Rajajanarajana Jaya Rajajanarajana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Govakta Virinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Virinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Krishna Bhagavan Sarvabhachana Shishita Shishmad, His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Soko Krishna Chitravantananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Sama Veda Bhakti Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hari Hari. Hare Krishna, I hope hasn't taken too much time.
No, Prabhuji, thank you very much. That was very melodious. We really enjoyed ourselves.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So let me briefly introduce you, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, devotees. We are very privileged today that we have Mahaprasad Govinda Prabhuji with us. Prabhuji is joining us today from the UK. Prabhuji was born and brought up in Addis Ababa, which is in Ethiopia. It is the capital city. The amazing thing is Prabhuji joined this movement at the age of 19. And from where? From the best place in the whole world, in Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, and he has, after that, he served in Villa Vrindavan in Italy for a year. And then he was initiated in the Bhakti Vedanta manner here in the UK. Prabhuji is married to Mani Manjri Mataji, and Prabhuji has 3 children. Prabhuji has done various services in the Bhakti Vedanta manner as a pujari and various other activities. But the feather in his cap, and I'm sure Krishna is very, very pleased with Prabhuji because he has translated a lot of our Vedic texts, including the Bhagavad Gita, transcendental teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, On the Way to Krishna, Easy Journey to Other Planets, in Amharic language, which is the Ethiopian language, and he's distributed, and each of them were 5,000 copies each. And currently he's also translating Bhagavad Gita, which we are studying, Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Upadesha Mitra. So we are really privileged to have Prabhuji with us today. And Prabhuji, we like to soak ourselves in the nectar that you are going to shower on us. Prabhuji, we are on Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 5. Chapter 5 is Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And we are on text 25. Prabhuji, over to you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the introduction. I think you covered all. I don't think I need to add anything. The very first thing I wanted to say is really heartfelt thank you for all of you for having me, for giving me the opportunity to be able to glorify Srimad Bhagavad Gita, especially my favorite country, Kenya. For me, my spiritual birthplace is Kenya. I started Krishna consciousness in Nairobi, Muhoroni Close. Served Shri Radha Banki Bihari way back in 1982. And everything started there in Muhoroni Close, you know. The first Radha Krishna deities I've seen is in Nairobi. The first Rath Yatra I've done is in Mombasa. The first prasadam I tasted is in Nairobi, Radha Banki Bihari temple. The first Harinam I did was in the streets of Nairobi. The first kirtan I've done in the congregational development is within Kenya with our Gujarati community. So everything started in Nairobi. So I often say to Manasi Ganga that my mind may be in England, but my heart is always in Nairobi or in Kenya. So I'm looking forward to coming more often from next year onwards. Because I have retired from my work life, although I can continue to work for many more years, but I've decided, because my daughters are married, I wanted to spend some time in extending Srila Prabhupada's mission in Africa, particularly in Kenya and Ethiopia. So I need all your blessings in due course to be able to serve you in all kind of forms, and your blessing will count. And hopefully we can serve together, Srila Prabhupada, the mission. So thank you for the Bhagavad Gita verse. Maybe we can start with the invocation mantra. I don't know who is one. If you can put your video on and put your audio off. That way I can interact and I can, with Q&A and everything makes my life easier. I know whom I'm talking to as well, yeah. So you can put your audio off and then you're welcome to put the video on and then we can interact, you know, there is Q&A and everything, we can continue. So perhaps we can start with the invocation mantra. You can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Mukham karoti vachalam pangom langate girim yat kripa thamaham bande paramananda madhavam chi chaitanya ishu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you are muted.
Prabhuji, you are muted. I'm trying to unmute you. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yes, now you are unmuted. Now you are unmuted. Yes, Prabhuji.
But all this time when I was speaking, was I on mute?
No, we could get the invocation mantra, and after that,
Okay, just only for a few seconds we lost you
yes,
then.
yes.
Okay, I don't know what happens. My apologies. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen souls. His mercy turns the dumb into eloquent speaker and enables the lame to cross the mountains. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5. This is the chapter entitled as Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 25. I don't know if you want to repeat the word and everything. Maybe you can try it. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam.
Labhante Brahma Nirvana.
Labhante Brahma Nirvanam.
Labhante
Brahma Nirvanam.
Rishaya Kshina Kalmasa.
Mrushayaha
Shina Kalmashaha.
Rishaya Kshina Kalmasaha.
Mrushayaha
Shina Kalmashaha.
Kshina Dvaidhayata Manaha.
Shina Dvaidaya Tatmana.
Kshina Dvaidat Manaha.
Chinna
Shina Tatmana.
Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha.
Sarva
Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. So you can repeat after me the word to word. Labhante,
Labhante.
achieve.
Achieve.
Brahmanirvanam,
Brahmanirvanam.
liberation in the Supreme.
Liberation in the Supreme.
Rashayaha,
Rashaya.
those who are active within.
Those
who are
active within.
within.
Krishni Kalmashaha,
Krishna Kalmashaha.
who are devoid of all sins.
Who are
Who are devoid of all sins.
China,
China.
having torn off.
Having torn off.
Dvaidaha, duality.
Duality.
Yata Atmanaha,
Atmanaha.
engaged in self-realization.
Engaged in self-realization.
Sarva Bhuta,
Sarvabhuta.
for all living entities.
For
all living entities.
Hite,
Hite.
in welfare work.
in
welfare work.
Rataha,
Rataha.
engaged.
engaged.
Okay, I'm going to read the translation. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then when he acts in that spirit, he acts for everyone. The sufferings of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Therefore, to act to revive this consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the Supreme. A Krishna conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely freed from all sins. This is a state of divine love. A person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society cannot factually help anyone. Temporary relief of the external body and the mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. When a man is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul, although he may be in a material tabernacle. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmiltamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadvatam Prajana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritam Cha He Krishna Kruna Sandudina Bandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishabhanu Ste Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyavicha Patitanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavivyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Guru Uttarakhanda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. How long do you run the class normally? My classes are average about 1 hour, but shall we make it less or more, or how long do we have? It's 20 past 5 now.
So till 20 past 6 is okay. I mean 20 past 9 in
You mean for the next 45 minutes to an hour?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Up to an hour. Okay. Because I don't want to get carried away. Thank you very much. So this is a wonderful verse. Chapter 5 is full of interesting topics when it comes to applying ourselves in Krishna consciousness in a practical way. And I'm glad you lot are reading the Bhagavad Gita regularly, even if it is in an online form. This is very, very important because Srila Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva have pointed out that Bhagavad Gita is actually a scripture that has the power and the ability to remove all kind of miseries and all kind of anxiety from our consciousness. There are millions and millions of different kind of books, different kind of literature all over the world. Yeah, none can equal Bhagavad Gita when it comes to removing the anxiety, the suffering, the misery of the living entities or the jivas in the world. Yeah, there's so many different kind of miseries. Miseries caused by all kind of disease. You can see the COVID-19, how people are miserable all over the world. Old age, every time we get old, we suffer. There's a lot of emotional trauma. There's medical problem. There are natural events coming up. The world is full of anxiety and full of misery and full of suffering. But a Krishna conscious person remains in equilibrium at all times because he's got the weapon of the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. He understands his position as a significant spirit soul, a servant of God, and all this material calamities doesn't actually affect him. You can see when the world is in turmoil, especially now, you can see practically with COVID-19, devotees are flourishing, you know. There's more kata going on in every town and village. Amazing. Even with us, you know, I used to have a Samantha group in Doha once a week on Saturday. Now we have it 4 times a week. We have Bhagavad Gita, we have Bhagavatam, we have reading sessions. Devotees are interacting a lot more. So devotees are always taking advantage of a calamity and turning it around in their favor by using their time and their energy to perform devotional service. And Bhagavad Gita is the only book that also can remove our karma. You know, the soul is actually bringing its own karmic problem from the time we are born. We have to pay for what we've done in the past. There's no literature in the world that is able to neutralize that bad karma that the living entity is facing throughout his life. It's only the Bhagavad Gita. When we chant and read Bhagavad Gita, when we listen, when we discuss, when we give the message of Bhagavad Gita to others, we're getting purified. Is this scripture the only scripture alongside other complementing scriptures like the Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita? These are the scriptures that purify the soul in a way that we can be freed from our karmic activities. No any other book can do that anywhere in the world. The other thing is that Bhagavad Gita also has the power and the ability to cleanse the soul. You know, the scriptures are telling us externally and internally we have to be clean, right? Externally, it's easy, you know, use water, you know, you keep yourself clean in so many different ways physically. But how do you clean your internal consciousness, your envy, you know, our madness, our greed, yeah, our contamination, our sinful mentality? It's very subtle. You cannot wash it by water, yeah. The only thing that can wash that dirty consciousness that we have is by listening Bhagavad Gita, by chanting the holy name, by performing devotional service. Yeah. So again, the Bhagavad Gita has that power to be able to cleanse us internally in a way that we are much more closer to the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. The scriptures tell us, there is one beautiful verse in Garuda Puran, Ava Pitra Pavitro va sarvatsam gatopi va yahasmaret pundarikaksham sabhaya bhayantara suchihi. Bhayantara suchihi means internally and externally we have to be suchi. Suchi means clean. Muchi means dirty. Yeah. So to stay clean internally and externally, you know, it's important to perform this kind of devotional service, especially internally. Externally, obviously, we've got to keep ourselves clean. It's like when we go to the altar, one of the requirements before we worship the deity is to be prompt and to also remain very clean. Those are the two very basic and most important nature that we need to have, you know, when it comes to worshiping the deities and everything. And in general, Bhagavad Gita is also the essence of all the Vedic literatures. You know, when we talk about essence, what are we talking about? You know, it's a concentrated extract of the goodness that we normally get from a plant or from any kind of seed is considered to be essence. So in the same way, the best essence, the best message that we have in Bhagavad Gita is actually the crown jewel of the Vedic literatures. Yeah. So the Bhagavad Gita is considered to be very unique in comparison to all the other Vedic scriptures because they are the actual words of Krishna. Krishna actually spoke Bhagavad Gita. Those are the words of Krishna. That makes it very unique. And it's also known as Gita Upanishad. We have 108 different kind of Upanishad for people with different kind of mentality to upgrade them, to bring them up to the point of surrender. There are so many Upanishads. Out of those Upanishad, the Gita Upanishad or the Bhagavad Gita is considered to be the essence, you know, the crown jewel of all those Upanishad. Because of that, there is so much power. So it's nice that you lot are regularly reading and chanting and listening Bhagavad Gita. The more you do it, the better, which is very purifying. It's good for our advancement. So you've been discussing chapter 5. Obviously, today we're on verse 25. The chapter 5 is talking about action in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is emphasizing how we can act in the material world, because everybody has to act, right? But acting in a material consciousness is different from acting in the Krishna consciousness. When we act in a material consciousness, we are bound in this world. Repeated birth and death is coming again and again and again. Whereas when we act in Krishna consciousness, we can free ourselves from that repeated cycle of birth and death. So this whole chapter is focusing on that. I mean, it started off by Arjuna asking Krishna. Arjuna was telling Krishna, you know, Krishna, so far you've been telling me about renunciation, about the yogis and how to meditate and how to renounce. But you also told me that I have to perform action, thinking about you. Which one is beneficial? Which one is better? You know, he started off the question like that. And Krishna told him both are good. Both are good, but work and devotion is the best. Yeah. And instead of renouncing everything, going to the forest and trying to control your mind, actually engaging your mind in devotional service and Krishna consciousness is better. And it actually works very well for us. Maybe the meditation parts, you know, going to the forest and meditating for weeks and years and decades or whatever, may be applicable to some powerful yogis in the past. But these things are not practical nowadays, especially in Kali Yuga. Our mind is chanchala, you know, it comes and goes every minute. Very difficult to focus even for 10 minutes. So how can we go to the forest and spend weeks and years and decades, you know, meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Practically impossible. So Krishna is also recommending 5,000 years ago, just in the beginning of Kali Yuga, I would recommend, he said, work and devotion. Work, you know, don't stop your activity. You may be a grahasta, you're working, you're bringing up children and everything. Do everything that you're doing normally, but apply devotion, apply bhakti, change your consciousness, make it Krishna conscious. Yeah. So Krishna is encouraging us to do that. And the other point he mentioned within this chapter is to renounce from duality, you know, because this duality is like cold and hot, happiness and distress. These things are very common in the material world. So one has to be able to renounce the effects of the dualities and maintain his Krishna consciousness, knowing that those dualities are caused only by the material nature. So he's covered few verses in the earlier part of this chapter in that area. And in general, he talked about in the verse 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, he brought up different points which are very important in continuation when we talk about the 25th verse. Like in verse 20, he's talking about how can we overcome happiness and distress, you know. He pointed out that unless we remain in a transcendental consciousness, in a spiritual and a devotional consciousness, it will be very difficult for us to overcome the material happiness and distress that we experience in this world. And these things are coming because often we are attracted to all kind of sense enjoyment in the material world. When we have a material consciousness, our mind is always attracted, how can I enjoy? You know, to make the best use of everything, to enjoy ourselves. So that actually brings the suffering to the soul, because in the material world, it's quite illusory. The real happiness comes only when you actually satisfy the soul rather than the physical body. The happiness that you give for the physical body is very temporary. We feel it, we feel happy, but it's temporary because we're not really quenching the appetite of the soul. So Krishna is pointing out that to really enjoy unlimited happiness, then you have to satisfy the soul. How can the soul be satisfied? When the soul serves Krishna, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. If the soul turns towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Krishna, and if we serve Krishna, then the soul begins to experience that joy, that happiness. So in verse 21, Krishna mentioned that avoid attraction to any kind of sense enjoyment and enjoy the devotional mentality. And he pointed out that all the material activities are the sources of misery. You know, whatever misery we experience in this world, Usually they're related to the physical body. And, the whole material activity can be a source of misery. And he pointed out, on the verse before, verse 25, he is saying that one who enjoys within, meaning that understanding that the soul is there within our heart, and next to it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the relationship we have with God as a servant, if we can meditate on that, and if we dovetail activities to please Krishna, Krishna is there within our heart, then we can be in a liberated platform. We can be the perfect mystic. There are so many different kind of mystic, but the perfect mystic is actually the one who is communicating with Krishna and who is serving Krishna. So mostly this kind of discussions you must have covered so far, but today's verse is focusing more towards dualities of the material world and working or performing welfare activities, and removing ourselves from all kind of sinful activities, and ultimately achieving liberation. Translation goes, those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. That was a verse that we read out today. So in this verse, 4 points are covered very nicely by Shri Krishna. One of them is, how can we overcome the effects of dualities that we see in the world? The other one is engaging our mind within, rather than looking up to a material enjoyment, and working for the welfare of all. That's very interesting as well. What does that mean, working for the welfare of all? And Krishna is saying, free yourself from all kind of sinful activities. And if you can do that, you can achieve liberation, or you can go back to Goloka Vrindavan to Krishna. So let's touch the first point. The first point Krishna mentioned is the dualities. What is duality? Duality is just an instance of opposition. You have a contrast between two concepts. That's called duality. In other words, two opposite aspects of something. That's dualism. For instance, there is a person who's able, there's a person who's disabled. That's a duality. Ability and disability. Or sometimes we get accepted by the community, by the teacher. Sometimes we get rejected. It could be by the employer. So that's another duality, accepting and rejecting. And sometimes a work can be adequate, or a work may be inadequate. That's a duality. Sometimes you have everything, and you may have nothing. Again, it's duality. Sometimes you have something happening all the time, always, and sometimes you don't see it at all, never. So this kind of things are full of it in the material world. Attraction and repulsion. It's there in the material world. You have a beautiful thing and you have ugly things, something that doesn't look nice, something that looks beautiful. These are dualities. You have a big thing, you have a very small item. You have a complete thing, you have incomplete item. You have something that's constant, it's happening all the time. And then you have something that doesn't change. You have a correct thing, you have a wrong thing, like that. It goes on forever. There are so many dualities in the world. So with our mind, we are manufacturing our own ideas and allowing ourselves to be affected by these dualities. So Krishna is telling us, control yourself. Don't get affected by these things, because they come and go. Like a famous verse in the second chapter, Matra sparsha stukuntaya shitus nasuka dukada agama painonitas tamstitiksha svabharata. Krishna is saying this happiness and distress, another duality. You get happy, you get distress. These things, they come and go in life, whether we like it or not. You cannot put a fence around you not to have distress in the world. It's impossible. Depending on our karma, depending on what we've done in the past, distress, anxiety, these things come into our mind. But what Krishna is telling us is stay transcendental. Don't get affected by this, knowing that they come and go, and allow them to go, like the winter and the summer season. You know, just like we know winter is coming. I'm in the UK at the moment. So winter is coming, January, February. It gets extremely cold. Yeah. I'm not going to cry over it because I know I will have to go through it. I just have to prepare for it, go through it, and then the summer will come. Yeah. I don't have to be heavily disturbed that the winter is coming. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I know they come and go every year. So there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. It's nature, nature's arrangement. So a devotee or a Vaishnava is meant to be always in equilibrium and not to be affected by this. The same thing with happiness, you know. Sometimes when people are overjoyed by some news or whatever, I mean, I know quite a few people have died just because they won a lottery. You know, they never expected to win a lottery. When they won a lottery, they were so happy that they just get a heart attack and they die on the spot. These things are very common. Yeah. Why? Because we are identifying ourselves too much with this so-called dualities of the material world, the happiness and the distress. When we identify too much with it, unfortunately, this kind of things happen. So what Krishna is recommending is that always stay sober, always stay undisturbed, but focus your mind in your bhakti and your devotion and your devotional service. And that way you can progress in a spiritual life. Yeah? That's the message he's giving us. Otherwise, the mind is always dragging us. You know, in Sanskrit, it's called sankalpa and vikalpa. Sankalpa, vikalpa means accepting and rejecting. This is the nature of the mind. But that mind has to be controlled by pure intelligence. Intelligence can control the mind, and the intelligence can be controlled by the soul. So the soul can say, my dear intelligence, I want you to do only things for me. I want to perform devotional service to Krishna. Therefore, use your intelligence to be able to get the mind to accept things that are favorable to devotional service. And that way, the mind can be controlled. Otherwise, the mind is always wavering here and there, here and there. Very unsteady. It has a very unsteady condition. So within the second chapter, in relation to dualities, Krishna says we need to be free from the effects of duality by establishing in self-realization. So there's a nice verse in 245 Bhagavad Gita, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirvandvo Nityasattato Niyogakshema Atmavan. Nice verse. Krishna is saying the Vedas, they deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and establish in the self. So in the Vedic scriptures, there's so many descriptions to try to elevate people with all kind of consciousness. You know, we have the Varna Ashram Dharma. Yeah, we have the Brahmanas, you have the Kshatriyas, you have the Vaishyas, you have the Shudras, and you also have, you know, people in the Brahmacharya Ashram, the Grahastha Ashram, and Sannyasa Ashram, Vanapastra Ashram. So there are different people with different kind of grades in this world, and the Vedas actually give information to help anyone on whatever grade they are in, to help them progress for a spiritual life. So, you know, there's a lot of description like Karma Kanda, for instance. The Karma Kanda is to be able to worship the demigods in a way that they can get what they want. Yeah, by doing that, they start following the Vedic literatures, and they start disciplining themselves how to worship the demigods or whatever. But the idea of this descriptions are to help anyone from whatever low position they are in to come up to a transcendental position. But actually the Brahmanas and the Vaishyas, we're very lucky to be given the opportunity to read and discuss subjects like Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, because these are the ultimate, these are the cream of the Vedic literatures. So it's important for us to constantly apply ourselves to be able to understand this, not only understanding it, applying it also in a practical way as well. So we have many examples, like in the scriptures, of Vaishnavas and Acharyas that have controlled themselves in a way that they don't get affected by this dualities of the material world, you know, the happiness and the distress and everything we talked about. One typical example I can give you is Haridas Thakur, Namacharya, a great Vaishnav. Although he has come from a Mohammedan family, but he had taken the devotional life and especially the chanting of the holy name very, very seriously. In the eyes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was considered to be the Nam Acharya of the planet. Yeah, very exalted personality. So at one point, Haridas was chanting on the bank of the Ganges River. So at that time, the Muslim community saw him chanting Krishna's name, and they got confused. They say, he's a Muslim. Why is he chanting a Hindu god's name? And they complained to the king, Chankazi. They complained, he's a Muslim, but he's doing this. So, you know, he sent his ministers. He said, tell him to stop doing this. So the ministers went to Haridas and they told Haridas, you're a Muslim. I think you need to stop chanting this name and you should chant names from the Quran. He said, no, you know, at the end of the day, God is known in different names and I prefer to continue chanting the way I chant. And he wasn't obviously willing to stop his chanting. Because of that, they reported him back to the king, Chankazi, and Chankazi decided to punish him. How does he punish him? By taking him to 22 different marketplaces and beat him up heavily in front of the public so that, you know, the public can learn that nobody should do what Haridas is doing. So it was unfortunate Haridas was beaten 22 marketplaces very, very heavily. But Haridas was continuously chanting intensely holy name. Because of his purity and because of his strength, this so-called distress that has been caused by this Muslim authorities was not affecting him. So much so, after being bitten 22 marketplaces, they realize he is a great personality and affected. And they were worried that the Chankazi will tell them off by saying that, well, although we've beaten him, he's still chanting. So he didn't want to put them in inconvenience, and he put himself like in a coma. He was totally absorbed. And they took him to Chankazi, and Chankazi thought, okay, finally you killed him, well done, and take him away and throw him in Ganges. And that's exactly what they did. So when they threw him in Ganges, you know, he swam, he came out and he was chanting very loudly Krishna's name. When they saw that, and when Chankazi realized that, oh my God, he was dead, but he became alive again, you know, and he's still chanting. So they realized he's such a great personality. And from then on, they respected him so much, they never touched him. So a great Vaishnavas like that can show us by example. I mean, this is an extreme example. This is not something that we can imitate. He is a Namacharya. But a little example that we learned from this Acharyas is that sometimes there may be a distress, but that distress has to be tolerated so that it doesn't affect our devotional service. I remember in 1986, I was attending the Vrajamandal Parikrama in Vrajabhumi for 1 month. We were walking barefoot, and we could see devotees were going through a lot of physical inconvenience, but yet everybody was so happy. Nobody was complaining about the physical pain. And I remember I used to have rashes, I used to have splinters and, you know, exhaustion, a lot of physical inconvenience, but nobody was complaining. And it was 1 month, everybody was barefoot, over 100 devotees. And at one point when Lokanath Swami was giving a lecture, he said, look at you. This is what we call a transcendental consciousness, whereby devotees have achieved the transcended the effects of the dualities of the material nature, because a lot of physical suffering, but yet everyone is happy. If that wasn't a material calculation, people would be complaining every minute. No, why should I walk? You know, it's painful, I'm tired, or whatever. But devotees were not expressing that. I mean, we were walking something like 8, 9, 10 hours a day, hot weather, on a tarmac, through the river, or whatever. A lot of physical inconvenience, but nobody complained. Yeah. So sometimes when we practice devotional service, the so-called pain don't matter. You know, devotees actually transcend those things. Prahlad Maharaj, the same thing. You know, he was thrown off the cliff by Hiranyakashipu. Obviously, Krishna protected him. I mean, these are extreme examples, obviously, how Krishna protects. Even he makes the so-called pain much more easier for a devotee, to an extent that he can continue meditating on him. Prahlad was thrown in a freezing, cold, snowy storm. He was thrown into a boiling water. He was thrown in a pit of snakes. He was thrown under the foot of the elephant. But Krishna was always there. Why is that? Because Prahlad Maharaj consciousness was focused 100% on Krishna. He's never deviated from remembering Krishna. Because of that, Krishna was always protecting him. The same was Draupadi. You know Draupadi's story. When she was actually in the court of the Kauravas, they were trying to disrobe her. They were dragging her by her hair. Dushashan was tearing off her cloth. And, you know, Duryodhana and Karna and all that, they were insulting her quite heavily in the court. But her meditation on Krishna actually protected her. Although Dushashan was trying to disrobe her constantly, she raised both her arms up and her focus was on Krishna constantly. Because of that, Dushashan was not able to disrobe her, because her meditation, she wasn't worried about the anxiety of the material embarrassment. She knew she's in a predicament, but she raised her hand and she focused on Krishna. And Krishna always protects somehow or other. For Bhishma Dev, when Bhishma Dev was attacked by Arjuna, when he was sleeping on the bed of arrows, can you imagine the amount of agony he would have? But he didn't want to die. Why didn't he want to die? Because he was looking for opportune moment when he can fully meditate on Krishna in person. He was waiting for that time and moment. Although there was so much pain and everything, he could have died. I mean, he has a power to die whenever he wants, Bhishma Dev. Yeah. Can you imagine thousands of arrows? He is sleeping on the bed of arrows with all that pain. He's tolerating all that because he wanted to be able to see Krishna face to face directly. And he wanted to depart from this physical world by 100% meditating on Krishna. So, you know, Krishna intervenes as well. He makes it comfortable for his devotees. When our mind is totally focused on Krishna, the so-called pain in the material world become insignificant. In Christianity, the same was Jesus Christ. Before he was crucified, what happened? He was bitten so badly. They made him carry that huge, massive cross, and he was bitten all the way until he is crucified. He tolerated all that, so much toleration, but he was meditating constantly on God. Yeah. So this shows the greatness of different kind of Vaishnavas in the world. One last example I can give you is Gajendra. The elephant Gajendra, he was a king. He was living an ideal life. He had a terrific power within the forest. He was surrounded by so many she-elephants. No animals can provoke him in any way. He was a king in that forest. He was living a very ideal, very comfortable life. Yeah. And he was so infatuated with himself, thinking that I'm the most powerful, nothing can happen to me. Yeah. But the moment he went to the lake, when he was caught by the crocodile, then the suffering began. Then the anxiety, you know, he thought he was powerful enough to release himself from the crocodile. He fought and fought and fought. He couldn't do it. He realized he cannot depend on himself. Therefore, what did he do? He started calling out to all the associates that he had. They all surrounded the lake. Nobody wanted to come into the lake because they were afraid of the crocodile. Again, he was banking on his strength first, failed. And then he was banking on his friends, family, brothers, or whatever, failed. Nobody wanted to come. They say that, oh, my dear Gajendra, if you're not able to defeat this crocodile, none of us will. Therefore, we will not be able to come. So towards the end, he realized he was totally helpless. So that was the point when he surrendered to Krishna, when his whole mind and consciousness is fixed on Lord Narayan, the Lord Vishnu. And he prayed to Lord Vishnu. And because of that sincerity, Lord Vishnu actually came. He plucked the flower from the bank of the lake and offered it to Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu protected him from the clutches of the crocodile. So whenever there is a pure meditation on Shri Krishna, this kind of sufferings disappear. You know, we have to have trust in that. But the thing is, we have to connect ourselves. Whenever there is any material calamity, especially for a devotee, there is a good reason. It could be because we need to learn a lesson from it. It could be maybe Krishna wants to burn our past karma instantly by putting us in some kind of inconvenience. So whatever inconvenience a devotee go through is always good. So long as we're serving Krishna, Krishna knows what is right for us, what's wrong for us. Sometimes he may want to use us as example for others as well by putting us in some kind of inconvenience. So a Vaishnava must never question the deeds of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When it comes to suffering inflicted upon us, it's always good. Even if we just die suddenly, or if you get hit hard with something, there's always a reason. Nothing happens by chance in this world. Yeah. So Krishna has a good reason why he's doing that. So we should always accept, my dear Lord, whatever you bring as you wish, but allow me to continue focusing my mind on your lotus feet and serving you. That should be our meditation at all time. The second point that's been made is in the translation, the mind should be engaged always within. That's a very interesting one. The mind should be engaged within. What does that mean? We all know the mind is the cause of both a bondage in this world and liberation. We can be entangled in this world, or we can be liberated just because of the mind. It's all mind's fault. If the mind is attracted to sense enjoyment, then we are caught up in this material world, repeated birth and death. We can never get out of that cycle of repeated birth and death. Whereas if the mind is focused in serving Krishna, serving the Vaishnavas, serving the Guru, then liberation will await that soul. Yeah. So it's important. What does meditation means? Normally, meditation means to absorb our mind and a spiritual consciousness, focusing on Lord Krishna. That's meditation. It could be in the form of chanting, could be in the form of hearing, it could be in the form of serving in some forms. Meditation is the absorption of this mind, this wicked mind, which is always going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, controlling it and having it to serve Krishna. That is a real meditation. So normally the mind is always thinking, and then it feels, and then he wants to do something. There will be willing, thinking, feeling, willing, thinking, feeling, willing. So that thinking, feeling, and willing should be saturated with devotional mentality. Otherwise, that same mind can drag us to something else. When we think of how can we serve Krishna? How can we serve the Guru? How can we serve the Vaishnavas? How can I bring up my children in a Krishna conscious way? How can I create a Krishna conscious environment amongst my friends? Yeah, we can involve, we can keep our mind engaged in those kind of mentality. And eventually, the mind can be automatically controlled. So Prabhupada always says that a person who is actually absorbing the mind in devotional consciousness, he is considered to be the perfect yogi. Among all the yogis, the yogi who always absorbs his mind in devotional service is a perfect yogi. And Krishna says that yogi is eligible to go back to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. And liberation is there like a shadow awaiting for him. The third point that was mentioned is the welfare, working for the welfare of all. This is very, very interesting. In Sanskrit, this is called Sarva Upakaraka. Sarva Upakaraka, meaning working for the welfare of everyone. So this is misunderstood quite heavily in the material world, yeah, because a lot of materialistic people or people who are involved in karmic activities, they feel that the normal welfare work is uttam, or is the highest welfare work, which is wrong, yeah. So for instance, in the world, we have the top welfare organizations. One of the top one is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He is a founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. They got a foundation which is the world's largest, I would say. They've got a budget of something like staggering $34 million, not million, $1 billion. Million is very small. 34 billion, quite staggering amount. Their budget is much higher than the World Health Organization. And they focus primarily on health and poverty. They're trying to increase the health of especially poverty-stricken countries, continents, in Africa and Asia. They spend a lot of money trying to improve people's health. And the other one is poverty. People are very poor. So they help also to alleviate poverty around the world. But there is something that they're missing. What they're missing is that, you know, beyond the physical body for whom they're giving a welfare work or advantage, there's a soul within. The soul is forgotten. Yeah. Most of this welfare work, like Bill Gates Foundation, 34 billion, everything is invested for the upkeep of the physical body, to make the body healthy and to make the person come out of poverty. Everything is physical body. So what happened? When the physical body dies, the soul is left with nothing. The physical body was nurtured, but the soul was not. Yeah. So the person, the real person within the physical body is not really benefiting from all this welfare activity. Yeah. So this is what the world is missing. There's another welfare organization, the Open Society Foundation. They've got about $10 billion budget. You know, again, they focus on health and education, and they try to help small businesses to come up as well. And there is another one, the Ford Foundation. That's the third one. Luckily, within the Ford Foundation, we have a great Vaishnav, Alfred Ford, you know, the Prabhupada disciple who built, who assisted the building of the Mayapur temple. He is actually from that family. Although the Ford Foundation money is not used, everything was not used for devotional activity, at least some part of the money is utilized and promoting bhakti, promoting devotional service to fulfilling Srila Prabhupada mission. So at the end of the day, the real welfare work is when we do a work that benefits the soul, not just the physical body. Doing charitable activities and welfare work for the physical body is fine, but if it's not complemented by helping the soul to get out of this physical material world, we're not really doing them a favor. Yeah. So Prabhupada is always saying that reviving devotional consciousness in the entire society is considered to be the highest welfare work, because we're really benefiting the actual soul, not just the physical body. Yeah. The soul is suffering in this material world through birth, through old age, through disease, through death, through a adibhoktic problem, natural disasters, you know, problem coming from our own body, from our mind. There's so much suffering going on. So the soul needs to be assisted in a way that the soul cultivates a devotional mentality in a way that we can get out of this world where there is so much suffering. Yeah. So the real welfare activity, Prabhupada always said, is actually reviving the devotional mentality within the soul. For instance, there's a lot of poor people who require a distribution of food. Yeah. Many organizations, they distribute food, which is fine. But actually, devotees, when they distribute food, they offer the same food to Krishna in a devotional way, and they actually distribute prasad. So that prasad helping the individual physically and also spiritually as well. Their heart is cleansed because they're accepting Krishna prasad. So in that way, it's spiritualized. So this kind of welfare work is a perfect welfare work. So when Krishna is talking about the welfare work in this specific verse, that's what we're talking about. Helping the living entities, helping the jiva to advance, helping the jiva to awaken himself from that slumber of the material consciousness and adapt to devotional life and practice devotional service. So, and in general, the universal welfare work, according to the Vedas, are heavily focused towards the cows and the brahmanas. I mean, the cows comes first. Any kind of welfare work we do, especially for the cows, and by establishing Goshala and everything, is considered to be uttam, one of the highest welfare work that we can do for a living entity. Next to the cows is the brahmanas. Also the brahmanas, the Vaishnavas, the devotees, yeah. And anything we do to assist the devotees is considered to be also one of the highest universal kind of welfare work. I mean, we have it in India as well. In India, there are some welfare organization. There's one organization, they call it Daridra Narayan Seva. Daridra Narayan means poor Narayan. This is an impersonalist concept in India. They're saying that we're all Narayan, but because we're stuck in the material world, we're considered to be the poor Narayan. Yeah, this is an impersonalist concept. So they've got a welfare organization in India called the Daridra Narayan Seva concept, and they try to feed the poor. They try to do all kind of different kind of activities. But in general, you see so many philanthropic organizations, welfare organizations in the world. I mean, one organization, the Bill Gates Foundation, 34 billion, they're spending that much, but the suffering is not going. Why is that? Even though we're spending so much money in welfare activity, in fact, the suffering is increasing more and more. Why is that? Because they're not actually purifying the soul in a way that the soul doesn't come back in the material world with another bad karma to go through the same inconvenience. Yeah. I mean, I can give you an example, for instance, in a prison house, for instance, in Kenya, I'm sure you have a lot of maximum prison. I think there's in the region of 9 or 10 from what I read in the past. There are maximum prisons within Kenya, for instance. Within those maximum prisons, you have prisoners. And most of these prisoners, they're offenders because they may be serial killers, or they may be dealing with drug, rapists, or they may be robbers or whatever. So they're kept in a very, very strict place. Yeah. So one person may think, okay, let me do some welfare activity for this prisoner. Somehow or other, I know the management within the prison, and somehow or other, let me bribe and let me get this person to escape. He may think that that's a welfare activity. Yeah. So if he manages to bribe someone and to allow this prisoner to escape, is he doing him a favor? No, he's not doing him a favor, because he will be doing the same thing. He's not corrected. This prisoner has come out of the prison. He's not corrected. The moment he comes out, he will do the same thing, the robbing, the raping, or whatever he was doing in the past. So that so-called welfare work that individual has done for this prisoner is not really doing him any help. But the real thing will be to assist him, to educate him in such a way that his consciousness is cleansed while he is in prison, in a way that he corrects himself. And when he goes out, if he becomes a good citizen, you've done a good welfare work. I'm just giving you an example. And devotees, for instance, within ISKCON, we have a prison ministry. We have many devotees who distribute books, who give prasadam in different prisons. Yeah. So what's happening is that they cultivate this prisoner. They give them prasad. They have online session discussion like this. They give them a book. And believe me, quite a few prisoners have come out to become devotees after the prison. They chant their rounds, and they give up their nonsense, their sinful activity, they become vegetarian. And it's a big ministry, the prison ministry around the world, in America, even in India, they do it in India as well. So they have book distribution program with them, they have prasadam distribution. So this is a real welfare activity, a real welfare in a sense that you're not just helping him to come out of the prison, but you're also cleansing his consciousness in a way that when he comes out of the prison, he becomes a good citizen. Not only that, he understands his position as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he gets involved in devotional activities. He associates with spiritualist minded people. So this is the kind of welfare work Krishna is talking about. When we do welfare work for humanity, it has to be done with the soul and mind, not just with the physical body and mind. If it is just the physical body and mind, we're wasting our time. We're fooling them. We're not really helping them, really. Yeah. But if we can help the soul alongside the physical body, that's a perfect arrangement. Yeah. So when the soul is purified, he will never go back, to that position again. Even if he takes birth again in the material world, he probably will take birth in a devotee family or in a rich family or whatever. He will not go through the kind of suffering that he went through in the past, because the soul is being purified by this transcendental spiritual welfare activity someone has done for him. Yeah. So it's very interesting, to know this. But in the scriptures, just to unwind, one good example I can give you is Maharaj Parikshit. He was the ideal welfare worker as a king. He was just amazing. He had no self-interest, Maharaj Parikshit. He was the ideal king and the ideal householder as well. He was a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has all the good qualities of a Vaishnav. He has no attachment, although he had so much wealth. He was the emperor in the world, Maharaj Parikshit, but he had no worldly attachment for any of the opulences and the possessions he had. Yeah. So he was helping the society just to make sure that they are righteous. Slaughterhouses, for instance, were not allowed anywhere. No cows, no bulls were slaughtered anywhere during Maharaj Parikshit. This is a real welfare work for the society, for the citizen, by helping them, by correcting them to be away from sinful kind of activities. Yeah. And, there are many living entities. He wasn't, careful only for people. He was also careful for the plants, for the animals, for all living creatures. Yeah. Real welfare activity is done not just for humans, for everyone, even the animals we have to care for. Yeah. So Maharaj Parikshit was one of the most ideal personality on the planet who, in a global level, who performed an ideal welfare activity, universal welfare activity, and so much can be learned from him. So just, to give you opportunity to ask questions and everything, I just want to finish off. In the purport, Prabhupada made few examples that only a Krishna conscious person is the one who can be engaged in pure welfare activity in the world. Only a Vaishnav who knows the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna, he knows how to engage the living entities in devotional activities. Yeah. So Krishna is the supreme proprietor. Once we make the living entities aware that Krishna is the supreme supreme friend, supreme proprietor, and we need to take shelter of him, when living entities actually realize that, they can start reviving their consciousness, spiritual consciousness, and eventually they can assist in this welfare activities. So I think it's probably a little bit over time. I want to make sure I give you opportunity to ask questions or maybe to give comments. And Manasikanga, if there is any corrections, I may have said something wrongly. So is that okay, Kitik Ben, if I can give the audience back to you, and maybe Manasikanga, if you have any comment, any additional comment or any correction?
No, I don't have comment. But I wish you had stopped a little earlier so that there would be more questions. However, let ask people to open up to questions. The class was excellent, but could have been a little shorter so more questions could have been answered, but it's okay. No loss.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this enlightening talk. Maybe I misled you because I was selfish. I wanted to hear more from you than ask questions. So I said 1 hour. So it's not your fault. It's my fault.
That's
However, I will take the liberties of asking you a question, if you don't mind, and taking some of your time.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm at your service.
Thank you very much for this excellent talk. So there is a question from Avinash Lakhani Prabhuji, and he is asking if by providing bhakti only when health and poverty needs to be cured, so we are supposed to appreciate work done by Microsoft, Bill Gates, and other charitable work. Then we can work together hand in hand with those organizations and add devotional activities to it. So they are doing the getting rid of poverty, and only a healthy body can then concentrate on devotional activities or chanting. So why not work with them, and so that they provide the first health and getting rid of poverty, and we provide the spiritual aspect. That is his question.
More than a question, it's actually a perfect understanding. I'm glad that question has come up. But at the end of the day, that is the art of Vaishnav. Vaishnav actually turns things around for a better. Yeah, we're not saying that stop all welfare activity, everything is nonsense. No. At the end of the day, Krishna is saying even your physical body needs to be maintained. You can't even perform devotional service unless you look after your physical body. So the materialistic people have done a wonderful job in making so much advancement to care for the body. But there is a gap. That gap is that they have forgotten the soul. Yeah. So our role is just that. Whether we can work together with them, whether we can guide them, whether we can work under them, so long as there is a collaboration to make sure that the understanding is there. Like, for instance, we have a beautiful Bhaktivedanta hospital in Mumbai. A full-fledged hospital, like any other hospital, yeah? But the thing is that they've added spiritual, devotional mentality. The way they treat the guests, their patients is different from the ordinary hospital. They make them understand their position, the physical body. They are a spirit soul. At the end of the day, you know, they have to also take care of the needs of the spirit soul. So many doctors, many medical doctors, most of them are devotees, have joined to collaborate and to work, you know, to create a nice spiritual atmosphere. So what we're looking for is a balance. There is imbalance. There is a lot of material welfare activity going on, but the spiritual knowledge is not injected into the mentality of those organizers. Yeah, like for instance, Alfred Ford, I mentioned, Prabhupada disciple, because he is a bhakta, he's a devotee, and he is actually utilizing some of his income and some of his wealth to create such a wonderful temple in Mayapur. But at the same time, with other welfare activities, yes, collaboration is ideal given the opportunity. I think devotees already do that. Many devotees do that for food distribution, cloth distribution. Like in Africa, for instance, we organize things with, sometimes even with stationery companies to get like cheap pencils and rubbers and everything for students. They become very attracted with that. They come and then they chant. We get them to chant Hare Krishna or whatever. So there is a compliment. There's a material reward, but at the same time making them understand about the spiritual subject matters. So a lot can be done. But otherwise, yeah, the physical body has to be maintained. We can't even perform devotional service unless we keep ourselves healthy and have, the right amount of income. If we're really, really poor, all our energy is, dedicated and trying to make money to survive, right? But yeah, these things has to be there, but the right balance is required. So yeah, collaboration is a way forward given the opportunity. I like the suggestion.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So we in Eldoret are doing the Food for Life program, and we go to prisons and we go to various special children in needs institutions and distribute Mahaprasad, and we chant with them. But these children or these prisoners or these handicapped people are having the prasad without their knowledge that they are having prasad. So is that okay to give them prasad without them knowing? Because prasad is prasad and it will benefit them. Or should we tell them that this is Mahaprasad?
I mean, there's a word in Sanskrit, agyata sukriti. Sometimes people get a benefit from a devotional activity without knowing, which is always good. Like when we do Harinam on the street, people hear they don't even know what Hare Krishna, Hare Ram is. You know, when the devotees are singing, they don't know. But just simply by hearing it, they get benefit. And devotees distribute sweets and prasadam in the street. You know, people just take, okay, oh, give me a sweet, and they eat sweet. But actually the purification is there. Just like when we are chanting the Sanskrit shlokas, most of us, we don't know Sanskrit. But just by listening that Sanskrit shloka itself, that transcendental shloka, it has a purifying effect. So any kind of devotional activity is very powerful. It has a purifying effect. Given the opportunity, yes, nice to explain to them. If you don't have the opportunity, just simply by offering beautiful, by cooking with devotion, nice preparation of food to Lord Krishna, offering it and distributing that prasad alone. Trust me, Krishna is saying even a little advancement on this path can save one from the highest type of fear. The highest type of fear is for us to die and not to be given the opportunity to be human, unless, you know, unless we are liberated. If we had to come back, we don't want to come back as animals, because if you come back as animal or a plant or whatever, then you lose the opportunity to practice devotional service. So Krishna is saying a little advancement. A person who's taken Krishna Prasad will never take birth as an animal, for instance. At least at a minimum, he will be given the opportunity to take birth as a human being to continue his devotional life. So this is the power of devotional service. Hearing Krishna's name, anyone who hears Krishna's name, even once in their life, they are saved from the highest type of fear at the time of death. They may not be liberated unless their consciousness is so pure. But when they do come back in the material world, they get given a better opportunity. So the more prasad that's distributed, the more books that's given out, even by seeing the books and touching the books, people get purified without even reading the book. Yeah, by holding Bhagavad Gita in their heart, they get purified. Krishna is very kind. This is an awesome kindness of God or Krishna, that he wants to take any opportunity to purify his living entities, because he wants us back to the spiritual world. He doesn't want us to rot in this material world. So anything that is done in his connection, he favors us. He showers so much mercy. So these things are encouraged. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you very much. And we have living examples in our group, including me, that we had all the books written by Prabhupada and Bhagavad Gita as it is sitting in our library for 20 years. And suddenly, from my grandfather, and suddenly now I'm reading them. So he left his inheritance to me. So yes, I really believe in that. Prabhuji, going back to liberation, you said then by doing these activities, you will be liberated. But for devotees, liberation is not the aim. Even in our Damodar Ashtakam that we are doing every day, twice these days, we don't want liberation. We just want Bal Swarup to sit in our heart, according to Damodar Ashtakam. Or the aim shouldn't it be just devotional, that just give us your devotional, we want to engage ourselves in your devotional service. So is that what you should be asking for, or liberation?
That's a meditation, like you were saying, focusing on remaining in the devotional activity at all times. Let Krishna decide. But at the end of the day, Prabhupada was sometimes a little bit worried when the devotees think that, oh, I don't mind coming back, taking birth again and again to do devotional service. Prabhupada was not that much in favor of that, because we are conditioned souls. We are not Jivan we are Jivan Bhada, we are conditioned souls. So we may say that, oh, I want to come back next lifetime to continue performing devotional service. But can we guarantee that? What about if we get carried away, we become materialistic, if we go down the hill again? You never know, because we're conditioned souls. So Prabhupada never wanted us to take any risk. Yeah. Although we're not meditating that, oh, I'm doing devotional service because I want to get liberation. We don't do that. We just want to develop our relationship with Krishna in such a way that we are always sheltered by him wherever we are. And normally for a Vaishnav, liberation is like a shadow. You don't turn around just to make sure your shadow is following you, right? When you walk, the shadow is always with you. You don't need to turn around. Oh, shadow, are you there? So we don't need to look out for liberation. Liberation is there as a shadow. So long as we are engaged in devotional service, liberation is there like a shadow. Yeah. So long as we keep our mind pure and keep ourselves pure. I mean, liberation is actually not something that comes at the time of death. Liberation is instant. Prabhupada said, in a moment you can be liberated. But the problem is, can we sustain it? If I make myself very pure, and if I surrender, and if I give up all kind of attraction I have for the material world, I'm already in a liberated state. But the problem is, our mind is so weak. Tomorrow we will get affected when we look at something, when we smell something, when we touch something, you know, we may get contaminated and we may go back and forgetting Krishna again, because we are conditioned souls. We're not jivan muktas. Yeah. So that is a risk. Otherwise, liberation is not something that's given to us at the time of death. Liberation can be given instantly. Like, for instance, Katvanga Maharaj. The devatas came and they told him he is a great warrior, and they have a lot of mystic power and everything. He was a king, and he was very known for his ability to fight the demons. And the devatas wanted him to come and become their general to fight. He did that, Katvanga Maharaj. He was a king. But then at the end, when he wanted to come back, they asked him, what can we do for you? You've done so much favor for us. And we told him that I want to make sure I go back to the lotus feet of the Lord. And he asked them, when will I die? When will I leave this world? They told him, you only have 24 minutes, half an hour, and then you'll be dying. And immediately he went back to the kingdom, immediately surrendered, immediately. All material things and everything, he totally 100% focused his mind on meditating on Shri Krishna. Virtually within moment, he was able to liberate himself by totally surrendering and focusing on Krishna. These things are described in Srimad Bhagavatam. So by totally surrendering from all material attachment, focusing himself on Krishna, he was in a liberated platform within a moment. He is very famous for that in Srimad Bhagavatam. And guaranteed liberation was there. He went back to the spiritual world. So, but you know, how many of us can do that? That we're all contaminated in Kali Yuga, you know. So we got to make sure we continue serving and praying to Krishna, so that Krishna's kindness is there to allow us to continue performing devotional service throughout our life. Yeah, but that's a good point.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you said that the state of happiness, and then we become sad, and then happiness, and then sad. That is the way us jivas are behaving these days. But I hear people, they say, okay, we are happy with that ups and downs, because we know when we are down, we will be elevated again to happiness. Again, when we are happy, we know that we will be sad because of some. That's a better way of living than just being sthita prajna, just being a steady mind, because the steadiness can be boring. So is that can I explain to them that the steadiness is a constant high? We are steady, we will be constantly thinking of Krishna, and that is the constant happiness that we'll get without getting the sadness. But then us lot who are aspiring devotees, or we are just embarking ourselves in this journey, we don't experience that highness, we don't experience that sweetness, we don't experience that happiness. So then it's difficult for us to remain in that platform. So therefore we shuttle between happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad.
Well, when we talk about those happiness distresses, those are in relation to material happiness and material distress. Even within the spiritual world, there's only Ananda. In fact, the soul is made up of Satchit Ananda. Ananda is happiness. Yeah. So there's joy. And that spiritual joy is different from the kind of happiness we talk about in the material world. That's an ever increasing Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam. In the spiritual world, the Ananda the soul has is ever increasing. Like Srimati Radharani's, even Krishna can catch up with her. Her joy, her happiness is always increasing. We're not talking about that happiness. We're talking about within the material world, because of our material senses, sometimes we experience happiness, sometimes we experience distress. Krishna wants us to be detached from that, knowing that it's connected to the body, nothing to do with the soul. A guy won a lottery. It's got nothing to do with the soul. He may get a lottery, he may get a nice car, a nice house, or what. It's all for the body, nothing to do with the soul. Yeah. So if he's overjoyed because of that material happiness, nothing to do with the spiritual, then he can affect himself. Sometimes distress comes in that way as well. When the body is in a physical predicament, if we get carried away and too much absorb ourselves in the body and neglect that we're actually different from the body, we just need to do the minimum for the upkeep of the body, we can lose our spiritual side. But otherwise, we're not talking about the spiritual, the ananda the soul is experiencing. That's joyful. We're meant to be joyous and happy in devotional service. In fact, devotional service is supposed to be performed in so much happiness. So that kind of happiness is a happiness that is welcomed by Krishna. Yeah.
So but how can we attain that happiness, Prabhuji? That is the question. The ananda.
Yeah. It usually depends on our conditioning, right? The soul has got so much conditioning. You have a dry wood and a wet wood. How long does it take to burn the wet wood? A lot longer, right? Whereas if you have a dry wood, it will lit immediately. It will start burning. Yeah. But if it is a wet wood, first that wetness has to dry, and eventually will dry, and eventually will burn. Yeah. So every living entity that's coming to this material world has so much conditioning. We've been rotting in this material world for many, many lifetimes, again and again and again. We've been coming and going, coming and going. We've been associated with material life for so long. So the soul is covered with so many material consciousness. So two individuals may practice devotional service at the same time, but the joy they experience about it may be different. Why is that? Because of the conditioning of each soul. Yeah, each soul. I remember there was a piano teacher. Two students came to him. One of them knows, he learned himself and he knows a little bit how to play piano. The other one doesn't know anything. So the one who doesn't know anything, he was paying half price. The one who knows something, he was paying full price. And they went outside, they were talking and said, oh, he charged you half price? He charged me for what's going on? I know a little bit, I should get cheap price because, and then they both went and they asked him, what's going on? He doesn't know anything, but you're charging him half price and you're charging me full price. He told them, well, the problem is because you know something already, but you know it in a bad way. Yeah, you don't know it. So I have to get you to unlearn what you've learned, which is going to be more hard work for me. Yes. So sometimes the soul is like that. The soul comes up with all kind of baggage from past life. When you start practicing devotional service, you may not experience that happiness and that joy immediately, because Krishna has to purify you first. Krishna has to do all the hard work of, burning all your bad karma, yeah, depending on what we've done, yeah. So it will take a while. It could take a while, but once the purification is there, then you will be able to experience the joy of devotional service, yeah. Steadiness will come, enjoying it. Your mind cannot think of anything else but performing service, yeah. So it could take years, it could take weeks, it could take days, it could be instant. Like that dry wood, it could be instant. You might just ignite in devotional service, you'll be so excited. So one must not be disturbed by this. Oh, they're making advancement, I can see them, they're enjoying or whatever. No, the main thing is hang on to what you're doing. Krishna is saying, Satatam Kirtantomam. Do it regularly, steadily. You will definitely get to that stage, to Ananda stage eventually. Don't let go. Don't get intimidated by the advancement of others. Yeah. Hang on and pray to Krishna, pray to the Guru, the spiritual master, and do whatever you can in your own way. Guaranteed, you will perform very well. Yeah, you will advance. Yeah. And if you can't experience your Ananda, blame yourself. You can, oh yeah, I must have done so much bad karma in the past. That's okay. Blame yourself and please, Krishna, purify me. I want to experience the ananda sooner than later. And Krishna will facilitate that, definitely, depending on our sincerity. I hope that makes sense, Kirtika.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Are there any other questions? I know we have now exhausted our 6:20 to 6:33 or 9:33 in Kenya. Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, I hand over to Path Prabhuji.
Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We are so blessed today, and it is a very wonderful class. I really appreciate your presence and giving his very vividly and describe the all the details here. My request is that as Kenya is your working place, the best place, and you know Krishna consciousness in Kenya, and Nairobi is temple. So my humble request is that, like according to your example and the explanation, the truly welfare work, the truly welfare for the mankind, the living entity, to spread Krishna consciousness. So my humble request is that, if possible, you will come according to your time schedule, so that we can spread Krishna consciousness in Kenya as well as in Africa. There is so vacant in all over the Africa. There is so, like Europe or America or in India, like the spread of Krishna consciousness. But in Africa, it is so vacant, very less. So we need, like you dedicated devotees in a highly spiritual devotee, elevated devotee. So it is help as well as ours also, and also the Kenyan peoples and all of the Africa people. This is my request.
Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna.
You're very, very kind. The same request have been given to me by my great Manasi Ganga many, many years ago. And I've told her, yes, once my household duties are over, I will come to Kenya. And I've come to that stage. And I hope,
Yes.
Manasi Ganga is very senior to me. We were in the ashram together, but she's been preaching since the early 80s, late 70s or whatever. And I have been promising that. But yeah, that's my desire. As early as next year, by next year, I want to come and spend some time in Kenya and also.
Like Prabhupada, when Prabhupada preaching in Africa, though, so that he called many of the American Africans and UK based Africans so that they can preach. It is easy to interact with them, to talk with them. It is easy for them, easy for you. So our main motto is to preach the Krishna consciousness, and it's very nice place.
Yes.
And people will want to ready to listen, but the problem is that we have no good preacher, we have no dedicated preacher for here to explain Krishna consciousness in Africa. But this is the true welfare work for the living being. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, very much. I'm not taking too much time. Already we are exceeding.
No, 1 minute, Path. Let me correct Mahaprasad. I'm senior maybe by age, not by spiritual. Only by age I'm senior, yes.
I was just a young little brahmachari when you were guiding us, caring for us, looking after us. You're just being modest and humble, Manasi. I'm coming to Kenya to serve you.
We are also her babies. We are what we are because of her. So Prabhuji is very humble.
She's just being humble and modest. Yeah.
Prabhuji, if you can come to a Zoom class once a week, we'll appreciate that. We will appreciate you coming to Kenya, but I'm sure Path Prabhuji is going to make that request as well.
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
I've got about 3 or 4 sessions a week with Samantha B because I'm still running the Middle East one. Once a week is probably more frequent. Every couple of weeks, if you want, we can schedule something 2 or 3 weeks. If you want me to discuss Bhagavad Gita, whatever, I'm happy to do that until I come to Kenya. But yeah, let's keep the momentum. At least every month we should have this kind of session. I'm happy to make myself available. I think Manasi organizes.
Grabs any small mercies. Don't let it go. Even once a month, once in 2 weeks, just grab it, Kritika.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes.
Thank you. So Prabhuji, give us your day whenever it is convenient. Once in 15 days. Maybe you can coordinate with Mansi Ganga Mataji, or I can.
Govinda and Manasi, yeah, definitely. I will coordinate with them. We're happy to do that. Yes, Partha Prabhu, you were saying something?
No, Prabhu, it's okay. Thank you, Prabhuji, for your precious time to giving us. We are so grateful on behalf of ISKCON Eldoret. This is a small center. I thanks to all. And also thanks to all the devotees who join here in this Bhagavad Gita reflecting course. A
Thank
special
you.
thanks to Mansi Ganga Mataji. He invite you like a great speaker and very elevated speaker, the senior Vaishnava. So on behalf of everyone, I pray our humble obeisances. And I request everyone, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra once for glorification of His Grace Mahaprasad Govind Prabhu. Please join. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, we'll see you soon.
Yes, Prabhuji, as promised, once in 15 days.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, we've been joined by people from UK as well. Avinash Prabhuji is from our Sangha in UK.
Okay. He's joining.
Devotees from there as well. So
Mm.
it's an international group now, Prabhuji.
Very nice. Very nice.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.